I'm Largo. This is a layer. And today we're going to delve into Beasties and Baddies from the prehistoric era with some friends. So let's see who is here today. Hey, Will. Nice to see you.
Right.
Uh-oh. He's got his
Hey, how
dino.
are you?
I'm good.
How's
I've
it
got
going?
my raptor buddy here ready for the occasion.
Excellent,
Nice to
excellent.
have you for a Beasties and Baddies. Um,
It's nice to be
I
here.
will play our intro and introduce our special guest for today. How's that
Who
sound?
could it be?
I don't know.
Hello.
It's Goji.
Unfortunately,
When
I
it
am not
comes,
wearing my deerskin bikini today. I apologize to all the viewers. That's on another platform. If you want to see that,
yeah,
you got to
we
pay extra.
didn't want to get peating at us for wearing fur, I guess.
hmm And I
But
did bring
yeah,
my
anytime it comes to
my cave girl and my dinosaurs.
excellent, because all things dinosaurs, kaiju, or horror, you're my guy. You're my go-to. So I'm glad you're here.
Glad to be here.
Um, So we had a lot of fun delving into Hammer horror not too long ago. So
hmm
we decided to stay in that Hammer vein and look at some of the other Hammer films in the prehistoric and oh I guess you would call alternate history versions.
hmm
But
Yeah. Nothing you're about to see occurred in natural history. It's all made up by Hollywood, but that's okay because we still love it.
absolutely, historical accuracy has never been top of my list when it comes to entertainment. So but for those who are not familiar, back in the what mid '60s, there was a craze of horror movies that specifically went into lost valleys, lost worlds, a lot of lost in the titles,
Yeah,
with all
absolutely.
kinds of dinosaurs and critters and people running around in fur loincloths and bikinis,
hmm
just having
Yep.
all kinds of shenanigans.
Before
So
Jurassic Park came along and made it cool to have dinosaurs come back via science. Back in the day, we have all sorts of lost worlds, lost valleys, as you said, places under the Antarctic or the Arctic or in a hidden valley somewhere, and it became a whole genre in and of itself. Through television,
yep.
movies, comic books, you had the Savage Land and the Lost World of the Warlord, the Valley of Guanji, the Lost World, the Land that Time Forgot, the Valley of the Dinosaurs, the Land of the Lost. It's a whole thing.
and and they did not let the lack of modern computer technology and virtual graphics and special effects stop them. They worked with what they had,
They
and
sure
they
did.
threw just about everything into it. They tried every trick in the book to make these things appear on screen,
hmm
and I think you're going to enjoy uh, what we're about to see.
Yeah, we definitely owe
Absolutely.
some credit to Ray Harryhausen. It was his
Oh,
stop motion animation that kind of paved the way for a lot of these guys to figure out how to do this stuff before CGI was a thing. What got you into these, Goji? As a kid watching these on like Saturday morning reruns, or
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was a dinosaur kid, as were many
sure,
people our age were in childhood, fascinated with dinosaurs, and everything I could consume with dinosaurs: comic books, cartoons, movies. And a lot of these I saw on Saturday afternoons on the Creature Double Feature. You know, it wasn't all about Godzilla on the Creature Double Feature. They showed a lot of different stuff, and some of these films were shown on there, and I got hooked.
Were you able to enjoy some of the dinosaur shaped SpaghettiOs? Were those a thing when you were a kid?
I think so. Yeah, yeah. Now
I seem
they
to
have
remember those.
the dinosaur shaped chicken nuggets are a big thing these days.
They don't make sense, but they're fun, right?
Yeah,
I saw someone on Instagram make a volcano out of mashed potatoes and gravy and surround it with the dinosaur nuggets, and that's a fun meal.
I can't think of a better way to eat them.
exactly. Well, to give you guys a flavor, we pulled the trailer for one of my favorite films from this genre, 1 Million Years BC. Mostly my favorite because of Raquel Welch, who was definitely a crush of mine as a kid. So we'll run that to give you guys a little flavor, and then we'll check out the slideshow that Goji has kindly prepared for us. So
nice.
Buckle up.
Well, let's go.
1 million years BC erupts on the screen with volcanic excitement. 1 million years BC, when the earth parted and the mountains fell. Primitive man and monstrous beasts fought each other to inherit the earth. Not since time began has the primitive scene been captured for the screen with such imaginative realism. Behold man 1 million years BC. Introducing the fabulous Raquel Welch, the sensational star discovery of this or any other year in 1 million years BC. See her as Loana the Fair One, who deserted her tribe and risked her life to follow Tumac of the Rock People. John Richardson as Tumac, as big and strong as the beasts he fought for survival. Nupandi the Wild One, whom no man could resist. See the fascinating, strange, and fearful creatures who roamed and ruled the earth 1 million years BC. The Brontosaurus, a moving mountain of flesh and bone. The pterodactyl, a flying reptile with giant teeth. The flesh-eating Allosaurus. The Triceratops, a horned dinosaur in battle with the savage Ceratosaurus. You will share the unending thrills and excitement of a world of primitive wonders, of primeval terror and savagery. You will indeed live in another world, in another time, as the centuries fall back to reveal the Earth 1 million years BC. Introducing the fabulous Raquel Welch as Loana the Fair One. John Richardson as Tumac.
I feel like
Coming soon to a
that
drive-in
movie
near
was
you.
like, what parts of, the ancient past we should put into this movie? And they were like, all of it. Just put all of it.
All of it,
You mean like dinosaurs? Yes. Volcanoes? Yeah.
everything.
More. Just add more. Like they were just like throwing it all in there.
An iguana the size
I
of a
think-
school bus, yes.
Yeah,
Hey, that tongue looked pretty
I think-
realistic. That was pretty good. And I got to tell you, though, the boar, totally fake. Didn't look real at all.
didn't by the board.
guy in a suit.
They, yeah, they definitely tried every single cinematography trick they could think of in this film. So it's one of my favorites. We will talk about that as we delve into the slides that we've got here.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get back to Luana, the fair one, and her friends.
Mm-hmm.
But cave girls and dinosaurs, that's a theme today.
Mm-hmm.
And
as I was researching this, a couple of things. There are a lot of films with scantily clad women in fur and deer hide bikinis, but not all of them contain dinosaurs. So if your favorite cave girl is not on this list, that means she was in a film without dinosaurs. That was one of the prerequisites. And another thing I found is that this is a very popular subgenre across fantasy and science fiction. There's a lot more than what I included in this list, from comic books, TV shows, television, films, toys. So this list is only theatrically released feature films, just to keep it, at a manageable length. So if it proves popular, I'm willing to come back and do a part 2. We'll see what happens.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, we're just going to scratch the surface of a very deep dive due in the future. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's sally forth. I'll read the slide and then we can comment on it if that works for you guys, depending on how good my signal is today.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see. Cave girls are part of the nubile savage trope. The young woman from a primitive tribal culture depicted as ravishingly sexy by the standards of the current audience, current being 1960s, from the hairstyles.
They still hold up today.
And this can work with men as well. We've seen plenty of films like plenty of the Tarzan films where he's, buff and, completely waxed over his entire body and, looking good. So it's, the nubile savage can work for either sex.
Indeed. Yeah, the lack of hairy legs and hairy armpits is probably not period specific, but we'll go with it. So cave girls appear in prehistoric lost world settings in films, television shows, and comic books, where they often encounter dinosaurs and other prehistoric creatures. And that's a really cool Frazetta painting. I can't remember the name of it, but I've seen that one. I love his work.
I think it's Tiger Girl or something like that.
That would make sense.
Yep.
Like that one. So moving right along, let's get to 1 Million B. Now, this is an earlier film. This was in 1940, directed by Hal Roach, with a couple of interesting folks. I would not have expected to be in a dinosaur film. Victor Mature as Tumak, Carol Landis as Loana, and Lon Chaney Jr., who's mostly known for horror fame as Akoba. So it's basically the same script that we'll see in a later Hammer production, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, we'll see. We talked about Lon Chaney Jr. in our Universal Monsters, Beasties and Baddies. Mm-hmm. He was the Wolfman.
So this is the original.
Played the same role distantly in a lot of the serials. What's that, Will?
This is the original, and we saw the trailer for the remake, I guess, that came out at a later
time. Yep. Yeah, the Raquel Welch film was a remake of this one, and we'll look at that one next. This was the original. Special effects not as polished as they would be in the Harryhausen film. So we can see the film is controversial due to its use of live animals battling each other. So a few of the films we'll see in this slideshow, they went the very cheap route with the special effects. They got baby alligators, iguanas, different types of lizards, and just kind of glued fins and horns on them, which you couldn't do today. Obviously, it's very cruel to the animals to do that. But back in 1940, that wasn't a concern, I guess, a widespread concern. I don't know if PETA existed back then. I don't think it did. But yeah.
So
And I know that type of stuff disturbs some people, but it is, historically, it's something that they did in the film business that hopefully they will never do again.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Here
so
we
here
can
we
see
have
a couple of
the
those
dinosaurs.
examples. Yeah.
Mhm. We had a pig in a triceratops suit, which I don't have pictured here. That was a bit
Oh,
silly.
wow.
And an armadillo with horns glued onto it. And we can see on the bottom right there the baby alligator with a fin glued to its back, and it was made to battle a tegu lizard. And in the film, you can see that these live animals actually go at it. They do battle each other. And I don't think the tegu lizard survived the encounter because
Oof.
it could be seen visibly bleeding
Oh,
in
wow.
the scene. Yeah.
I never saw it, but yeah.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad.
So,
But
yeah,
1940, that's what they were doing.
Yeah, we've come a
And
long way.
yeah, I was
in
mentioning
our
earlier,
kindness to animals.
yeah, and some of these were exotic animals to some audiences, and people didn't have the access to video footage of all of these types of animals. So the effects may have been, we look at it from a perspective of saying, well, that's clearly an alligator because I've seen, dozens of these or hundreds of videos or photos of this on Discovery Channel and whatnot. Audiences in the 40s did not have access to video footage of exotic animals like this. And seeing this may have looked realistic to them. It may have done, what they were trying to do. Where it's unfortunate the means in which they went to do these things, it was probably more done out of necessity than cruelty or, a lack of empathy. I don't think they really were considering the way we empathize with animals, and I think they were thought of differently back then.
Yeah,
is what I would say.
Yep, definitely due to trying to create an effect on a budget, and what's the cheapest way we can do that. We can get away with that audiences will believe, and this was it.
Yeah. Yeah, and as far as effects go, it was pretty cool for its time. The interactions, the way that they did the filming the live action actors and then filming the animals and superimposing that, it was pretty good for what they had to work with.
Yeah.
So definitely worth a watch if you're into this. If nothing else, to compare with what came later and look at some of the cinematography.
Are these
style.
readily available on any of the streaming services that you know of, Goji?
I have not researched what the streaming
Okay.
availability is of any of these. I would say probably not. A lot of the, more obscure films are not going to be found on streaming services.
But they should be readily available on DVD or Blu-ray, whether you buy it new or used.
Pretty much everything's on physical media.
Yeah. And I noticed on a lot of the physical media too, some of these they'd update the cover art to make it look more modern, and then the video you have inside is like a 1940s movie.
Yeah. Here's our first cave girl, Carol Landis, a contract player for 20th Century Fox in the 1940s. 1 million BC was her breakout role. She was known as the Ping Girl and the Chest because of her curvy figure. Good old-fashioned Hollywood sexism.
Absolutely.
But
this did lead to some other roles for her. She became quite well known in Hollywood, and not quite the fur bikini we'll see in the later films. But
yeah, I was going to say
revealing.
it's like a leather looking dress, but by today's standards, it's not all that
right.
Scantily clad. She's covered.
Right. For the 40s, this was quite racy. You're showing a lot of leg and shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
Look at all that shoulder.
Here we are. 1966, directed by Don Chaffee, Raquel Welch as Luana, John Richardson as Tumak, Martine Bestwick as Nupandi. And it is the remake of the 1940 film we just looked at, produced by Hammer. with special effects by the master Ray Harryhausen, master of stop motion.
And this movie poster, and there was another one that was just a picture of Luana against like a volcano backdrop. That was like the most popular poster on kids' walls in the late 60s, early 70s.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's the one.
Yep. It's a
That's
photo
the
of
picture
Raquel
I
Welch
remember.
in a bikini made of fur and hide, became iconic after artist Tom Chantrell copied it for the movie's poster. This photo became a best-selling pinup poster, something of a cultural phenomenon, and Welch became an international sex symbol. And do you guys remember the movie in which this poster was one of the...
yeah.
Yeah. You remember Largo?
Was this in Shawshank Redemption?
Yep.
Yep.
This was the
yep.
poster that was covering up the hole to the escape tunnel.
Very nice. Good choice.
That's right.
Yeah, she was beautiful. And well, she's still a pretty lady, but wow. Back then she was a knockout.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Welch was described as wearing mankind's first bikini and being the definitive look of the 1960s. So, yes, very memorable in this role. Probably the role she's most remembered for.
Well, she definitely sold a lot of movie tickets.
Oh, I'm sure. And
See
poster.
why.
I mean, I wonder if she got any of the action on those posters, though. You know, probably not.
I would
Probably
hope so.
not, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this was Ray Harryhausen's 12th feature film. Mm-hmm. This was Ray Harryhausen's 12th feature film, and the only work he did for Hammer. And he created 7 different creatures to animate and stop motion in this film. So in the top left there, we have the Allosaurus, who was a more manageable size to take on hand to hand, as Tumak is doing there with the spear. And the
look
bottom,
at the detail, though. I mean, the sculpting on that is just phenomenal.
Oh yeah, he was a genius. And the bottom right there is the ancient turtle called the Archelon, which is the scientific name of it. And it's funny that the cave people call it Archelon in the movie. So they kind of knew what we were going to call it 65 million years later somehow.
Sure.
Yeah. Somehow they knew Latin.
How do you know this? It was written in the script.
Exactly.
It says it right here.
Yeah. So Harryhausen had already, refined his craft. He had done Sinbad and some other pieces before this. So he really had this stop motion thing down by the time he went to Hammer.
Yep. Definitely. Yeah. He had done the Rhedosaurus and the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. That was his first big one. So yeah, he loved dinosaurs as much as the kids that were watching his films. And we can see here he also used live creatures in some scenes, like that giant iguana, and he also used the tarantula. He felt the use of live creatures would convince the audience that what they were seeing was real. And I don't think the live creatures blended very well with the stop motion animals. You could tell there was a difference between them. Yeah, so I don't know how well his plan worked.
And I think the trick they learned later on was to slow down the larger image, because it's moving at just regular speed. So they would slow it down to give it the appearance of, moving much larger, or they film it at a higher frame rate. So yeah. And to our trained eyes, it just looks like an iguana because we've seen them, they're commonplace now, but maybe back then it wasn't.
A bit more exotic, but yeah, it's one of those tricks. When they slow the film down, or like you say, speed up the film rate, it makes a small animal look much larger because it's moving a little slower. But yeah, it was good. Another classic one.
Yep. 1960s Lost World, directed by Irwin Allen. Starring Michael Rennie as John Roxton, Jill St. John as Jennifer Holmes, David Hedison, famous for Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea and The Fly. He played Ed Malone. Claude Rains, who we talked about as the Invisible Man in our Universal show, as Professor Challenger, and Bettina Marcus as the Native Girl. She's our cave girl of this film. course, Irwin Allen became known for his sci-fi TV work in the 1960s and his disaster films of the 1970s. So
Yeah.
Irwin Allen produced Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Time Tunnel, Land of the Giants. Then he went on to do the Poseidon Adventure, the Towering Inferno, and things like that. So very famous name in entertainment back in the 60s and 70s.
Was he also involved with the television show Lost in Space?
Yeah. Yep, that was one of his.
I was going to say, I think that's one of his.
Mhm.
Yeah, neat. And there were some big dino critters in that one too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, all kinds of monsters and people painted up as different aliens. Yep.
Oh yeah. But this one's neat because it's actually based on a classic piece of literature from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle of Sherlock fame. He also did a whole series of these Professor Challenger stories where he and his team, they basically found it was like a plateau or a continent that was, I can't remember exactly in the film how they,
South America.
Right.
And this
so
is actually
once they entered
the second film adaptation of The Lost World. The first one was back in 1925, and that had stop motion dinosaurs by Ray Harryhausen's mentor, Willis O'Brien, the guy that did King Kong.
Oh, very
cool.
Yeah, but I didn't include that one in this list because unfortunately no Cavegirls in that one back in 1925.
Yeah, that definitely would have had the sensors up in arms, I'm sure. Neat effects in this one as well. Little, not PETA friendly, but
same thing we saw in the original 1 million BC with the animals with the prosthetics glued on. Little more sophisticated than the 1940 film, but still, not great. If you're an animal lover, you don't like to see this.
No, and they probably were not done with consideration for how the animal felt, but more how it looked,
And when I was watching this as a kid in the mid 70s on TV, I could tell what they were doing. I mean, we had become slightly more sophisticated by the 1970s, so we could tell, that these were actual animals with just things glued onto them.
Right. But you can suspend your disbelief for an hour or so and just enjoy.
Well, and there was nothing to compare it to. So, this was it. So for visual kind of candy, for visual feast, as you will, there was nothing to compare it to. So you just accepted it as it is. Just like, we accepted 8-bit or, video game graphics is wonderful. And then 16-bit, you're like, yeah, those look good too. We never saw anything else. So we didn't have today's modern graphics to compare it to. We just accepted it because it looked better than a book or or the yard.
Yeah. The goofiest thing is when they'd have to frame in where the actors were in a scene. They kind of, like you see here, they have them all bunched to the side because they had to be in a certain spot so it would match up with what they had filmed with the live action critters. So sometimes the perspective looks a little goofy, but that's part of the charm.
Yep. And as we can see here, Irwin Allen did want to use stop motion, but the studio budget did not allow for it. So it's the studio's fault, as always. And stock footage from this film would be used in his various sci-fi TV series that we just mentioned.
And that's another thing they did too with, animation. They just reused frames over and over again, but they would use the stock footage from this and other sci-fi shows.
Yep.
And people wouldn't catch it as much because, like I said, you went to the theater once. Maybe some people never even saw the movie again. It wasn't like us who, kind of continually rewatch and reconsume these things and then start noticing, hey, wasn't that the iguana from this?
Yeah.
Or they even flip them.
They could get away with it back then.
Yeah, like the Star Trek trope where they'd walk past the same rock like 6 times in a scene. But that'll be a fun Easter egg when you're watching some of these classic television shows to see if you can pick out some of the pieces that were from these previous films.
So here's our cave girl. Bettina Marcus played the native girl. That was her only name in the film, the native girl. She was of Hungarian and Sicilian descent and played guest roles on several of Irwin Allen's TV shows. I do remember her in an episode of Lost in Space. I think she was painted up like an alien.
Oh.
She left acting in the late 1960s and went on to a career in real estate.
Good
So
for
there
her.
you go.
Yeah. She probably used this on her business cards, though. Like
Sure, why
savage
not?
savings on your dream home, or
And her character in this film was something else we see a lot of. She had conveniently already met someone from the outside world who had taught her English, so she could communicate between the characters from the modern world and the native people of her land. So that's a
And this was
little bit of
a nice
convenience
way
there.
to explain away her heavy accent
Right.
also. So,
Mhm.
but fun. And yeah, the 70s, I wouldn't say it got more sophisticated, but it definitely became more blockbuster-ish. I mean, they were
Mhm.
really going for big effects, trying to wow the audience a little bit more than they did with the things that came before.
Yep. So here we are in 1970, When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth, directed by Val Guest, starring Victoria Vetri as Sana, Robin Horden as Tara, Patrick Allen as Kingzor. This was another Hammer film. This was the follow-up to 1 Million Years BC, but without Raquel Welch or Ray Harryhausen. I believe both of them declined to return for the sequel. And of course, this title is homaged in the banner in the film Jurassic Park at the end there, When Dinosaurs
Oh,
Ruled
yeah.
the Earth.
That's a great piece of artwork. That would
That
be
is
a neat poster
a
to
nice
have.
poster, yes. Does not convey what the actual film looks like we were saying, but it's a nice poster.
They do that all the time. They were
Mhm.
just
Yep.
there was definitely
No
they
truth
were
in
not
advertising.
communicating.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The effects unit at Brace Studios was used on the production. The stop motion animation creature effects were created by Jim Danforth, assisted by David W. Allen and Roger Dickin, with each model costing over $3,000 each on average. The film was nominated for Best Visual Effects, the 44th Annual Academy Awards in 1971. It lost to Disney's Bedknobs and Broomsticks.
They were robbed.
And-
I mean, I've seen Bedknobs and Broomsticks. It's not bad, but that
Mhm.
was, cartoon characters
Yeah.
superimposed over live action. This was a little more sophisticated.
Yeah.
But hey,
these look pretty good. And
Yeah, they
Yeah.
were pretty good. They weren't as sophisticated as Harryhausen's work. Harryhausen had the ability to somehow convey personality with all his
Yeah.
creatures, even though they didn't
And
speak. His little movements and things that he did conveyed personality, and not a lot of stop motion animators had that talent that he had.
that's what I was going to say. The intricacies in the movement, really gave life to his models. Whereas these look good, but we're looking at a still frame, so we're not seeing the emotion of them, which
right.
I would imagine is probably a lot more jerky and less lifelike than.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, it
But
was
the eyes
amazing.
look good.
If you've seen any behind the scenes stuff with Harryhausen, he would study the real movement of animals for hours and hours
Yeah.
and try to replicate that in what he was doing with stop motion. So he really loved the craft and put a lot of effort into making it as realistic as he possibly could. But this was good too. I enjoyed this one.
Mhm. So, due to lack of time and money, many scenes were canceled, including one that featured giant ants, which would have been portrayed through an articulated, dog-sized model created by Dickin for close-up shots. And Danforth went on to animate Pegasus in Harryhausen's Clash of the Titans.
Very cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, it makes
So,
sense.
yeah.
People who are in this, small clique of Hollywood that know stop motion, they probably knew each other.
Yeah.
And it makes sense they would work
Oh,
on
yeah.
each other's films.
Yeah, I think a lot of effects people cross over during their careers and collaborate with each other, help each other out.
But cinematography wise, I think this particular film, it had a really good design. The color palette, the way that they superimposed the actors with the dinos. I liked it. It's nice to watch.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, it's a good looking film.
yeah. And
one of the reasons why it's
this
good
doesn't
looking
hurt.
In her early career, Victoria Vetri was often cast in ethnic roles on television due to her Italian heritage. In January 1969, Vetri signed a multi-picture contract with Warner Brothers Seven Arts and was given a starring role in When Dinosaurs Rule the Earth. She refused to have her hair turned blonde from its natural auburn for the film. The story required a blonde, so Vetri demanded a wig instead. So that's a wig.
Fair enough.
Mm.
I don't know how many blonde cave girls there were back in the day, but hey, it's the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely a more revealing outfit than even what Raquel Welch wore. So they were definitely pushing boundaries at this point.
Yeah, and I think they had to keep topping themselves, because the audience was like, I'm going to go see this one.
Yeah, and I think we talked about in the Hammer horror show how in the 70s Hammer was getting a little more risque, a little more salacious to kind of get the asses in the seats in the theater, and this was part of that.
Yeah, much to the chagrin of Christopher Lee, he was not a big fan.
Yeah. So using the name Angela Dorian, Vetri was Playboy's Playmate of the Month for September 1967 and was the 1968 Playmate of the Year. She won $20,000 and a new car, which was an all-pink 1968 AMC AMX.
Wow.
So good for her. And another fun fact I didn't put in the slides, in 2010, Victoria Vetri tried to kill her husband by shooting him.
Oh.
He survived, and she went to prison for voluntary manslaughter or something like that, and she got paroled in 2018 at the age of 73. So she spent about 7 years in prison later in life for trying to kill her husband. And they did get divorced while she was in. So
when asked for a
reason,
reason,
he took the hint. It wasn't subtle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So onward with another bevy of babes.
Mm-hmm.
From
the same film also featured English actress Imogen Hassel as Ayak and Polish model actress Magda Konopka as Ulido. The film was released on DVD as an exclusive from Best Buy with a G rating, but was quickly recalled because it was the original uncut version and contained nudity. Whoops.
Oh.
Oops.
It is now a collector's item. The uncut version was also released on Blu-ray and DVD by Warner Archive. So if you find that Best Buy release with the G rating and the boobies in it, it's a collector's item.
I can imagine. That must have been some day for Junior. Hey, we got you a dinosaur movie. You like dinos, right?
Yeah.
And then they're like,
it's art. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to talk to our other cinephile buddy Grindhead and see if he has this in his collection. I would not be surprised if he
Johnny's
does.
been quiet for hours. He just keeps watching the movie over and over again. It's a darn distinct. Boobies.
Educational, indeed.
Yes.
Why is all the ink worn off the pause button? What have you been doing in here?
The good old days where we learned our anatomy from film.
Here's a favorite of mine. 1976, At the Earth's Core, and I have the physical media right behind me here. Directed by Kevin Connor, starring the great Doug McClure as David Innes, Peter Cushing as Dr. Abner Perry, and Caroline Munro as Princess Dia. Based on the 1914 novel by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Made by Amicus Productions, who previously produced The Land That Time Forgot, and the Doctor Who feature films, which also starred Peter Cushing, which are not Doctor Who canon, but they're still a fun watch.
Indeed.
And this was
I like this one for the there's definitely a steampunk flavor to the technology that was implemented.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
In the boring machine, which was very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those creatures look gnarly on the poster.
Yeah.
Did that translate to the movie?
Oh, we're going to see.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
They are very gnarly. And this is one of several creature features that Doug McClure did in the mid-70s. So I was always watching Doug McClure films when I was a kid. There was the Land That Time Forgot, and another one we'll see later on, The People That Time Forgot, and there was another one called Warlords of Atlantis, and this one.
Yep.
All produced by Amicus.
He played a reoccurring type of role where he's the dashing assistant to someone way smarter than him, and he tends to just go head first into danger, and the doctor's like, "Wait,
Yeah, he fights
That's
the fights
probably
and
not
gets
a
the
good
girl.
idea. Yep. So
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
gnarly indeed.
Indeed, yeah. These were suitmation, just like the old kaiju films. These were guys in suits. Kevin Conner recalled, "We tried to get the beasts bigger so as to interact better with the actors, more one-on-one. We had a somewhat bigger budget thanks to the success of Land in Time Forgot. The beasts portrayed by stunt actors in suits were especially designed so that small stunt guys could work inside the suits in crouched position or on all fours." So yeah, these were very gnarly. And they were somewhat based on real prehistoric creatures, but not really. They were
Yeah,
mostly just fantasy creatures, which was fine.
Yeah, the one with
It,
the
I
beak
feel
there looks.
really
I
bad.
feel like I saw
Yeah,
that in a Godzilla movie, but I could be
Mhm.
wrong. Yeah, it
I
looks
can just imagine these suits don't breathe, and these guys have studio lights, and it had to be like 1,000 degrees in there. That was
Mhm.
grueling work, but they did a good job
Mhm.
for what it was. These
Oh
are
boy.
fun.
Yep. The beasts in the film were based on known prehistoric creatures, but filtered through the lens of fantasy. The villains of the story are the Mahars, which is the creature in the top left there, species of telepathic flying reptiles who rule over the human population. So they burrow in the story. They burrow down into the earth in this giant borer machine, and they come across this lost civilization full of dinosaurs, as one does when
Yeah,
one
Oh
bores
yes,
into
of
the
course.
earth. You're going to find that type of thing, and there are people down there, but they're ruled over by these monsters.
and they definitely spoke English, right?
Of course, yeah.
Of
Yes,
course, yes.
English is a
naturally.
universal language across all space, time, and reality. Everyone speaks English.
Yep.
Yes.
What was fun is in the beginning of this film when there's this huge thoroughfare, the professor showing off his new scientific machine, and everybody's there to wave them off on their, original or experiment, and right off the bat, everything just goes horribly wrong. It's like, it was supposed to be very orderly, and they had a very scientific method. Within like 5 seconds, that just goes out the window. It's like, what's this button do? No, don't do that. Oh well, too late.
Mhm. It always goes wrong.
Oh yeah.
Murphy's Law.
Whoops. Pardon me.
Oh,
There we go. Got a
Here
little
she
trigger
is.
happy there.
Caroline
wow.
Munro, one of my old favorites. Began her
Oh
career
yes.
as a model at age 17. Her first acting contract was with Hammer Films, where she was featured in Dracula AD 1972 and Captain Kronos Vampire Hunter. In 1973, she was featured in The Golden Voyage of Sinbad. So I
And
saw a
she
lot
is,
of her when I was a kid.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Well, everybody saw a lot of her.
she
But
looks like a badass, though, right? So
she
she's.
is very athletic.
Mhm.
And my favorite memories of her is when she would pose for the Vampirella covers. She was the
Oh,
artist, or she was the model that was used by the artists when they
I
would
can
paint
see the
those.
resemblance with her
Yep.
top. Definitely
Oh yeah.
paints that picture. That was very Vampirilla like, you know. Yes.
Mhm.
So for those early black and white comic books, she was the model that they often would use. So if you're a Vampirella fan, you probably know her.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But she played quite the vicious savage in this.
Just
Mhm.
not based on the title, Captain Kronos, the Vampire Hunter. I have to find out more about that. Just
Oh yeah.
it's just
So in 1977, Monroe turned down the opportunity to play villainous Ursa in
oh
Superman in favor of Bond girl Naomi in The Spy Who Loved Me. So, what do you think of that career decision? Being a Bond girl
yeah.
instead of a Superman villain? Monroe
Eh,
continued to work in numerous British and European horror and science fiction films throughout the 70s and 80s, such as Star Crash. She continues to act to this day. So
and
she's
I
had
think
a
you can see her
long
at
and healthy
some.
career.
Yeah. She's been at a few comic book conventions and other events. So
Mhm.
you can still spot her, maybe get an autograph.
Mhm.
Very cool.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But again, the costume designers were having a field day with these gals.
Mhm.
It's a bit of rattlesnake, I think, in that.
Yeah, just a
Looks
little
like
bit.
And this is just what that's just what she did in everyday life at the Earth's core. She just kind of posed like that on the, on the fur
Yeah,
mat with a snake. That was everyday
sunning
occurrence.
on a rock. Sure.
Here we have another Doug McClure favorite, People That Time Forgot from 1977, directed by Kevin Connor, starring Patrick Wayne as Ken McBride, Doug McClure as Bowen Tyler, Sarah Douglas, who did take the role of Ursa,
Yeah.
as Charlie Cunningham, Dana Gillespie, that's our cave girl, as Azure, produced by Britain's Amicus Productions and directed by Kevin Connor. Like Connor's other two Burroughs-derived films, The Land That Time Forgot and At the Earth's Core, the film was distributed in the U.S. by American International Pictures.
Yeah, this one, they definitely took some more liberties. I don't think they actually based this directly on a Conan Doyle property. It was just kind of loosely based with the same idea.
Mm-hmm.
But,
and the film that this is a sequel to, The Land That Time Forgot, I couldn't include in here because there was no Cave Girl, but it was one of my favorites when I was a kid. That was an excellent film. The story and the acting, even though the effects were a little the storyline and the acting was great. It had a great story with the British and American and German crews trying to navigate their way in this lost world. During World War I, when they were supposed to be at war with each other, they had to sort of call a ceasefire with each other to try to survive. Really good film if you haven't seen it. And this is the sequel to that.
Yeah, that sounds pretty interesting. And, that's always something where we have seen blockbusters with the best cutting edge visual effects, but the acting, dialogue, and I'm trying to trying to come up with a movie that maybe has stunning visual effects, but maybe the story and the acting are a little bit lacking. And yes, it's a visual feast for the eyes, but it lacks that content. Whereas a movie with some sort of balance, where maybe the story is compelling and you could overlook the limitations of their special effects at the time.
Right.
Really
I wouldn't say this was Academy Award level of acting, but the added dimension of having two different political viewpoints having to put aside their differences and work together to survive, that's a neat concept. It's been pretty well done in a few films, and this is a good example of that.
Mm-hmm. So in this sequel, Patrick Wayne's character is, if you've seen the Land That Time Forgot, at the end of the film, they throw a message in a bottle over the cliff, and it eventually makes its way back to civilization. And Patrick Wayne's character is the best friend of Doug McClure's character, and he mounts an expedition to go find him. So that's the setup for the sequel.
That's amazing that he found the bottle and he happened to be best friends with him.
What are the chances? Yeah.
A little bit of plot armor in there.
The expedition lands on Caprona. That's the mythical lost land in this reality, the same fantastic prehistoric land where dinosaurs and barbarian tribes of men coexist, as they do.
And, having the U-boat was a nice touch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like how the dinosaur's kind of half in the water and half out. His eyes just peeking out the top there.
Yeah.
It looks great.
That's how you always see a T-Rex, right? As a submarine, just kind of sticking his head out of the water.
It's just got
looking for a snack. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Just amazing.
But again, I love these old posters for these films. They're very well done, painted. Not like everything now is, photoshopped. These were,
I gotta commend
pieces.
them too, because when they said, what aspects of this type of genre should we put in there, and the guy just went, all of them. I want all of them.
What should I put in the poster? Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Everything. Okay, we'll do that. Oh wow.
The creatures in the film were created using puppetry and stop motion. The special effects were considered subpar for their time, and I kind of have to agree.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ray Harryhausen stuff looked more realistic than some of the puppets they used. Yeah. But in the top left there, that's a nice shot with the camera going through the mouth of one dinosaur and kind of looking at the other one. So
They were
good cinematography. They did what they could.
Right. They were definitely trying, and you could see it in the actors trying to act off of the critters that weren't there on camera while they were filming, but knew they would be added in post. It's like, it doesn't quite match up, but sure, we'll go with it.
Yeah, and then the other photo there we have Sarah Douglas's character taking a photo of a Stegosaurus, which kind of reminds me of the second Jurassic Park film. When who was the actress there? Julianne Moore was doing the same thing with the same type of dinosaur. So I don't know if they took inspiration from this film for that. So
yeah, could have been a slight homage there.
I could see that.
Here's our cave girl. Dana Gillespie
Indeed.
is an English actress, singer, and songwriter, originally performing and recording in her teens. Over the years, Gillespie has been involved in the recording of over 70 albums and appeared in stage productions such as Jesus Christ Superstar and several films. Her musical output has progressed from teen pop and folk in the early part of her career to rock in the 1970s and more latterly, the blues. So
Very
she
cool.
was and is a very talented musician, which she's probably more known for rather than her acting career.
Yeah, I'm probably right in assuming people went to this film not for her acting chops, but probably more for her outfit.
Probably because that interesting skull she's holding. Most people were probably looking at that and saying, "I want to know the backstory behind that right there.
What's up with the skull?
What's behind that skull that would be interesting?"
Yeah, the gems in the eyes are a nice touch. Very strategically placed.
So she only appeared in a handful of films after The People of Time Forgot, with her last film appearance being in 1990. So it's been a while since she's acted. And I believe she worked with David Bowie at one point as well in her career,
Really?
in her music career.
As a singer. Yeah, cool. This one's a fun one.
This is one that I've seen. I have seen this movie many times.
Caveman. From 1981, directed by Carl Gottlieb, starring Ringo Starr as Atok, Barbara Bach as Lana, Dennis Quaid as Lar, Shelley Long as Tala, and John Matuzak as Tonda. A slapstick comedy film starring Ringo Starr as a bullied and scrawny caveman that takes place in 1 zillion BC, October 9th.
I think my favorite scene was like the giant mosquito. Yeah, that was pretty bad.
This was pretty bad, and this
definitely played for humor.
On HBO, like in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like this just ran like every day. I remember just coming across it all the time, or had it on a tape or something. But yeah, and then like I remember my friend seeing it, and then watching it together with him, and we were the perfect age. I don't. What year was this? 81. Yeah, we were
81.
probably,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This is kind of more like
the
the Flintstones meet a really bad acid trip. It was trippy. As you can see by the interactions here with the critters.
Not exactly Harryhausen here.
No.
Film features stop motion animated dinosaurs constructed by Jim Danforth, who we just talked about with When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth, including a Tyrannosaurus Rex, which in one scene becomes intoxicated by a cannabis-type drug. Imagine that. Animated by Randall W. Cook. Danforth was a major participant in the special effects sequences, but left the film about 2/3 of the way, in his words, through the work because the Directors Guild of America prohibited his contracted on-screen credit. Co-direction with Carl Gottlieb. Consequently, Danforth's name does not appear on the film. So,
unfortunate.
The ins and outs of, how the Hollywood different guilds work. I guess he couldn't get credit where credit was due, so he took a hike.
But definitely didn't do much for Ringo's career. He definitely was better known as the conductor from the children's show. What was the name of that?
Oh, the one with the trains.
Yeah, Thomas the Tank Engine. When he would be the conductor in between talking. Yeah, So this did lead to better things, but it was a fun romp nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
And
my!
yes, Barbara Bach, one of the most sought-after modeling faces of the 1960s. Her acting career started in Italy, where she played Nausicaa in Le Dossier in 1968, an 8-hour-long TV adaptation of Homer's epic poem, The Odyssey. In 1977, Bach portrayed the Russian spy Anya Amasova in the James Bond film The Spy Who Loved Me.
Ah, another
Yep.
Bond girl. Yeah.
Oh
Mhm,
yes, one of my favorite Bond girls.
definitely. Barbara met Ringo on the set of Caveman. They were married in 1981 and have been together since.
Really?
Go figure.
Yep.
That's an interesting, dinner party story. Where'd we meet?
Hmm.
Doo-doo, caca.
Amazing in Hollywood when people get divorced every 10 minutes after being married for 5 minutes. These
Yeah.
two are still together after,
Yeah.
40 plus years.
So occasionally the drummer does get the girl. Interesting. Oh wow! Yeah,
And of
there's
course, as I
definitely.
said, there are many more cave girls to explore, from film, TV, comics, and toys. Shall we make a part two?
I
Only the
think so.
I
audience
I've
think it would
never
be
seen
cool.
that TV show, but that looks like it's made in the style of Xena or Hercules, the Legendary.
Oh yeah, that
Journeys.
was of that time when adventure TV shows and syndication were all the rage.
And
Mhm.
I never caught that one.
Shauna, the she devil. She was in with Marvel Comics at one time,
She
and
was
then
Marvel. Yep, she was
Dynamite, I
Marvel.
think,
She
took it
she
over.
started off as obviously a Sheena knockoff. Marvel's
Mhm.
not too shy about letting us know what they've knocked off. So Sheena became Shauna, but then later on in her career, she married Kazar, who was Marvel's
Right.
Tarzan knockoff, and now they're
Mhm.
the king and queen of the Savage Land.
Yeah, which is very much the Lost World, right? It's
Right.
in the
Yeah.
Arctic or Antarctic, right?
Hmm.
It's this hidden valley that
Yeah.
where
Yeah,
it's
Lots of
exactly.
fun there. There's like I said, there's definitely plenty of rabbit holes to go down in some of these other areas, whether it be the comic books, the television spin-off type stuff, or the toys. So, yeah, we should definitely revisit this at a
Mhm.
later date.
Mhm.
So,
Definitely.
excellent presentation, Gojitron. Thank you for
Oh
that.
yes.
Thank you.
You said you had a few examples there in your studio. Could we take a look?
Absolutely. So this is a an action figure of a comic book character named Cave Woman,
Oh yeah,
who we could discuss in the proposed second part. But yeah, this is an independent comic book character created by a gentleman named Bud Root. And
Yep.
this comic is sort of a quote unquote good girl comic. There's a lot of cheesecake cheesiness, and
Mhm.
yeah.
Cave
Some
Woman's
Betty.
Cave Woman's
Yeah.
bikini often comes off in certain situations. And this was my dinosaur. This is a Leonard
Nice.
Jurassic Clash dino.
Yeah. Was that the one that had the rig where you could put the figure on the back and he could ride it? Or
No, this one doesn't come with a
Okay.
saddle. This is just one of the ones that they fight. And he does have, if I can find the button.
Sound effects. Oh, nice.
yeah, very nice. And once again, that Jurassic Clash was sparsely distributed through the United States. It was pretty
Yep.
prevalent elsewhere, but
And
do
I
not
found this
see
at a thrift store just yesterday.
Oh,
And
cool.
for $4, I grabbed him for this presentation. So he's another one that's
Oh yeah.
Those are fun.
yeah. All these cheap dinosaurs either knock off the T-Rex from Jurassic Park for the sounds or Godzilla. Those are the only two monster sounds that exist.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, I like the Jurassic World stuff that Mattel put out, but Leonard did some really cool stuff there, and at a good price point. So those are definitely worth picking up.
Just wish we saw more of them. Yep.
Yeah,
Well,
dinosaurs
any
are sort of
other?
dinosaurs are an evergreen toy. You're always going to find dinosaurs in some
I just
way,
picked
shape,
up
or form.
this nice set. It's made by Schleich, and it's a a gentleman with a jetpack and little pterodactyl catching lasso, and they do a
Interesting.
whole line of dinosaurs, which are pretty much just Jurassic Park kind of ripoffs, but they're cool, and they've got different sets. But this one was on clearance on Amazon for only $8.
Yeah,
So I
Schleich does
thought
a
I'd
whole
check
lot
it
of.
out.
Yeah, they're known for doing some pretty realistic looking animals, but they're kind of branching out into some more fantasy stuff. That's neat.
So anywhere you could find them, and so I want to compare this one because I recently got that JP92 set where they have Ian with a jetpack and like a net blaster. You remember that part in the movie where he
Sure.
flew up and then he shot nets down, and yeah,
That was a
So
cutscene.
you gotta
Yeah.
love those kind of toys. They're great.
But this has definitely been a fun romp down some interesting films. Highly recommend everybody go check these out where you can. Whether it's in your bargain bin at your local place where you get your DVDs and Blu-rays, or surf some of the different streaming platforms and see what you can find. Places like Tubi and some of the ones that show some of the older films, might find them there.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah, there's definitely a couple. What was the Vampire Hunter? I just have to check him out.
Captain Kronos.
Captain Kronos.
Captain
Yes.
Kronos. Yes, the Vampire Hunter. I gotta check that one out. That one just stood out.
Absolutely. Well, guys, any other thoughts before we wrap it up?
Yeah, it's been fun
No,
Yeah.
and a
it's
good
been
walk
great.
down memory lane. A lot
Yeah,
of
and,
fun
really-
memories of sitting in my living room Saturday afternoons in the 1970s, just kind of gawking at the dinosaurs, and a few years later, gawking at the Cavegirls.
Yeah, I
Yep.
would imagine that. As kids, we kind of just looked right past that, And I think when you reach a certain age, then you notice other aspects of the actress.
Mhm.
But
Yes,
I'm pretty sure that upon rewatching some of these, I'll have dormant memories, unearthed that there was no way that I didn't see some of these, at some point.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
they were definitely popular fare for any Saturday afternoon or late night creature feature type shows. So you've probably seen a few of them and just didn't
Definitely.
know. But these were a fun part of my childhood, and I'm sure they were for Goji as well. So
Mhm.
hopefully, folks at home enjoyed these as well. And if maybe you found some new ones you didn't know about to go and check out, definitely worth your time. So,
It kind of makes me
thank you
wish
again.
that there was a button or something that you could take where you could just forget everything for like an hour or maybe 2 hours and re-experience something for the first time. That you could watch one of these movies again with a child's understanding of the world around you without all the accumulated knowledge and memories that we have today, and experience them for the joy that they are. Without
There are some recreational pharmaceuticals that can probably
say maybe
create
a
that
hammer to the
situation for you. I'll get with you after the show. Yeah,
a brick to
I
the
know a
head, and
guy.
then I wake up watching this and I go,
I think Eduardo has a little business on the side. You might be able to get
He
some
does.
good stuff from him.
All right, guys. Well, thanks again to Carl Gojitron for putting this together and sharing it with us here on Beasties and Baddies. Will, thank you for hanging out with us and giving us your commentary. So we'll definitely revisit this and look at some of the other aspects of the feral, savage,
Mhm.
noble savage, however you want to put it.
Nubile savages.
Nubile, indeed. And we'll see what other rabbit holes we find. So have a good one. We will see you guys in the very near future. Thank you.